Welcome to the Startup of Human Potential. We're your co-hosts.
I'm Clifton.
And I'm Victoria.
And together, we are Faces of the Future. Faces of the Future is a startup studio with a personal development platform at the intersection of consciousness, connection, innovation, and well-being. We're so excited to have you join in on today's show.
So today we are joined by our incredible guest, Stephan Oesterreicher from Germany. He's the founder of My Palm Leaf, a brand of the Conscious Innovation Lab. And together with his team of 25 people in 10 countries, they help people all over the world find and read their palm leaf prophecy in India. So these are prophecies that were written thousands of years ago, and they contain the life stories of individuals living in this world today. So Stefan has created a professional business offering around this, and it serves a deep purpose and is fully in alignment with his path, both individually and collectively. And this is a powerful instrument and tool and permission slip that can serve the awakening of humanity and the co-creation of a new world. So excited to have you on our show today, Stefan. Welcome.
Thank you, Victoria. Thank you, Clifton, for this lovely introduction.
So it's been a little while since we've caught up with you, Stefan. I think the last time we were talking, it was like 2020 or something. So since then, you've grown My Palm Leaf reading. I want to hear more about this incredible offering and this company that you've built.
Yeah, I'm still grateful for it every single day. And my life definitely changed a lot since we last spoke. I think also the world changed a lot. There was a whole pandemic in between.
Yeah.
And the palm leaves were definitely a major step for me to turn my life from a deep crisis into a fulfilled purpose that I'm living every single day now.
Wow. How did you stumble upon My Palm Leaf readings? How did you stumble upon the idea of a palm leaf?
So maybe I briefly explain what the palm leaves are, no, for our listeners.
Yeah, please.
So a few thousand years ago, in India, there was a group of sages. They were called the Rishis. According to the legend, they had many paranormal powers. They were not like us humans today, but they literally had lifespans of hundreds of years. They could fly through the air, basically, according to the legend. And they could also perceive information across time. You could say they could look into the past, present, and the future, because for them, time is not linear, like we experience it with yesterday, today, and tomorrow. But for them, everything in time is happening at the same eternal moment. And out of their great compassion for humanity, they could already see that us humans would go through deep crisis in the upcoming millennia, which is obvious right now that we're in a deep crisis as humanity. And out of their great compassion, they wrote down the life stories of a few million people onto these palm leaves. They're like dried palm leaves. They were used like paper today. So they wrote down the life stories of a few million people and also guidance for these people how to live a better, more fulfilling life. And these prophecies are stored in the palm leaf libraries in India. And you can actually travel there and search for your own palm leaf that has your name on it, your date of birth, names of your parents to make sure this is really your palm leaf.
Oh, wow.
And then your future life story with guidance how you can transform major blockages and live the highest potential of your life. So these are the palm leaves.
That is incredible. The first time I heard that back in 2019 or 2020, Clifton and I were on the Vedic sciences path studying all of that as well. I was blown away. And I was just being introduced to the concept of time being nonlinear. I was like, but how do they know? How do they have these prophecies? That's incredible.
Yes, it's so fascinating. But to experience it yourself and to hear your name, to hear the names of your parents written by someone hundreds of years ago, before your parents were even born, they knew that at some point there would be a Stefan, my parents would have these names. It's fascinating.
Is there an overlap with that and astrology, when you're going to be born, right? What year and whatnot? So they look at the planetary configuration at that time?
So astrology and the palm leaves are definitely related. Actually, both in the Vedic tradition are under the umbrella of Jyotish, the art of future telling. In India, the palm leaves are also sometimes described as Nadi astrology. What also makes them similar, that in the palm leaves there's often a vocabulary used that's similar to astrology. And sometimes I perceive the palm leaves to be like an astrological reading that was done, however, by an enlightened master a few years ago. It's a
Oh,
big
that's
difference.
awesome. Yeah. You would enlighten master to get your astrology readings. That's awesome.
Yes.
Funny. Like, let me make a phone call to the past to a previous, enlightened ascended master to get my astrology and my palm leaf reading for today. That's pretty wild.
Literally like that.
Wow, that's incredible. You know, it was around the time that through studying the Vedic sciences that I opened up to Akashic readings and was able to pull things outside of time.
Mhm.
And so the idea and concept was new to me, but then to understand that these rishis and there's this whole lineage of this and how they were able to just dedicate themselves to writing down the future, it's fascinating to me. Is there any particular people that they're writing it for, or how did they come up with the million, or does the legend talk about that at all?
No, however, I often perceive it that the people who have a palm leaf, they definitely have some kind of like spiritual openness. They're a little bit advanced on their path, or at least they're aware of their spiritual path. Because most people in this world, they will never even hear about the palm leaves. Only a few will hear about them, and only a few will hear about them and then feel an impulse, wow, I should really look for my palm leaf. Usually these people who also have one written for them, because the palm leaves, they literally call you in the perfect moment, also in the perfect place to look for them. It's like divinely orchestrated when and where you will hear about the palm leaves and where you will go to search for them.
Wow. So when you say to search for them, where are they found? Are they like in secret libraries across the world? Is there like a centralized library, or how does it work? Is it a secret?
It's totally decentralized chaos. It's total chaos on the outside, but it's, as I said, really divinely orchestrated. So it's originating from the south of India, from a state called Tamil Nadu. And from there, it comes spread all around India, but also in a few other Asian countries. They're like small palm leaf libraries. And it's like no one knows when the first palm leaves were written, because the ones that exist today, they are copies of the copies of the copies. Because such a palm leaf keeps for a couple hundred years, but not for a few thousand years. So every couple of hundred years, they were manually copied. And then these copies also spread to the different libraries. And it's also, there's a whole cast of palm leaf readers. That's a whole profession by itself that's passed on, usually from father to son, father to son. Nowadays, also a few women, but it's mainly men doing it. But it's like one big family that at some point, millennia ago, were given this divine task to preserve and share the palm leaves, who then have spread them all around South Asia.
Wow.
And coming back to your original question, so I spent a lot of time in India, but this is quite a while ago. It was more like in the beginning of my 20s. I spent a few years there. That's also when I heard about the palm leaves, and I also visited a first palm leaf library back then. It was a very small library. They only had a few thousand leaves, so not many. And I didn't find my leaf at that point. But I always remember that experience because it felt so authentic and real. It was really touching. And it always stayed with me, this experience. And then many years later, actually in 2020, after my whole life, it just like collapsed and I was very depressed. I felt like I had lost my path. I didn't see my path anymore. All of a sudden, one morning, I remembered, oh, the palm leaves. I need to find my palm leaf. Now is the right time to look for my palm leaf. And I didn't know how, so I just Googled. I was still half asleep. It was literally after waking up, still lying in bed. And I found someone who was doing the same work like we today, helping people to find their palm leaf. I booked an appointment, and that was the whole start of my journey with the palm leaves.
Wow. You found your palm leaf and your purpose
Definitely.
all in one.
Did your palm leaf say this was your purpose?
Actually, yes. It was
Really?
very magical how I had the reading, like, because I had the reading of my own palm leaf online on Zoom or Skype, I don't remember, while I was sitting in my car in front of a Vipassana center. And I went straight from that reading into 10 days of silent meditation. Literally straight. Like the people from the center came knocking in the window. You have to come now. We closed the door. Okay, I finished. So it was literally from the readings into 10 days of meditation. And that was perfect because in these 10 days, it became very clear to me that I have a lot of connection with the palm leaves and that I'm supposed to work with them.
Wow. And when you say reading, Is it somebody that's translating Sanskrit? Are they written in Sanskrit or what language?
Some are written in Sanskrit, most are written in the ancient Tamil language. It's a language from South India.
Okay.
And they're written in this ancient Tamil. And the palm leaf reader, he reads the ancient Tamil that's written on the palm leaf. However, it's not written like a book today. Like, it's more like encrypted, poetic information that's written on the palm leaf. So the palm leaf reader, when he reads the palm leaf, he's also at the same time channeling the information. When he reads the palm leaf, a whole world opens up for him, like a whole matrix of a life story that he sees on that little piece of paper. So he sees much more than what is written there. However, there's still something written there. So it has an anchor in the physical reality.
Wow.
That's amazing. You know, one of the things that I wanted to share is that this is through the Vedic sciences, right? Is that what this is connected to? And
Yes.
on more of a Christian esoteric Rosicrucian tradition, they have different levels of angelic beings. And the archai are one of the beings that transcend time, and they're able to see time in this very similar fashion. And so for those who aren't necessarily aware, sort of like the Hindu tradition, there is a deep Christian tradition to indicate that these abilities are rooted in their societal construct. And that's one of the powers of bringing everyone together on this podcast, is we can start to share this understanding, because it can be a little challenging perhaps to understand that, wait, you can have rishis who fly and live for hundreds of years and predict my future. That is definitely, there's certain levels of initiation that people can go through. When you talk about palm leaf readings, what kind of people have you been interacting with? What kind of people does it attract and bring into your world?
All kind of people. Many very interesting people, many inspiring people. I have a lot of great conversations with our clients. Some are also a little bit like, let's say, ungrounded. But many are very grounded also and just live a normal life, basically. It's literally people from all walks of life. We had a few thousand people already that we helped to find their palm leaf, and from many different countries. So it's literally all kind of experiences, but a lot of beautiful and inspiring conversations.
And how has it changed their lives? Like, do you hear feedback from them later, weeks or months later, about what's opened up for them since receiving this kind of reading?
Yes, it's very different, because for some people it's totally life-changing. Of course, I like these kind of experiences. For some, it's kind of medium, and for some, it doesn't do much. But for many people, we get a lot of messages that it literally changed their whole life.
Wow.
And also for myself, it changed my whole life.
Yeah, I was wondering that actually, Stefan. Like, what did it affirm for you, like from your past, or when you, at the time when you sought out the reading, when you were like, wow, this is life changing? I'm curious what things were accurately prophesized, if you want to share anything from your experience.
So looking back, many things were very correct from what was prophesized, including that I would basically everything that I do now. But I would run kind of like a spiritual organization. It would be related to Vedic sciences, related to Jyotish, somehow related a little bit to astrology, related to Indian spirituality, that I would work with many countries. Everything that I do now, very precisely described. However, in my experience, the prophecies are not even that important. It's kind of the part that kind of hooks our mind and like, what? How can that be? And it makes us very interested. But what I found much more relevant is actually the subtle effects that this has on our life. Because what happened for myself during and after the reading was not just that I got guidance about my life, but also that step by step, I got more and more connected again with my inner guidance. So it had a lot of inner effects happening on a subtle dimension that, in my opinion, are much, much more relevant than the prediction. And I perceive the palm leaves to be a tool to help us clear karma. Like clearing karma also to live our full potential.
It sounds like an initiation based on what
Very
you're
much.
saying. The subtle effects, like it's not even the information that's contained in there, but the energy or the frequency that you're tapping into when you're opening this portal about like your soul's and life's work and
Yes.
your human experience.
And
So cool.
and it's one of those things that requires a certain level of pre-work. You don't just wake up one day and like, hey, you know what? I want to have my future read by some palm leaves out in the middle of India by people hundreds or thousands of years ago. We liken it to people who are ready for receiving information from Bashar. I don't know if you're familiar with Bashar, channeled by Daryl Anka, but in order to actually treat it with any level of respect or understanding, you have to be open to the idea of channeling, open to the idea of extraterrestrials, of future selves. That requires a little bit of preparation. And so can you share a bit maybe about your journey and your preparation to get to this point? Because I feel like that's a really important area to understand. And, you know, to be able to build a business around this, you have some level of groundedness that is necessary to manifest this in the physical and to make an actual business around it.
Yes, and I'm happy to speak about it, but I also briefly want to mention that this preparation does not always need to happen on the outside. We also have many people come and search for their palm leaf who actually don't have much kind of spiritual preparation. Many do, but some don't. So it's not like it's absolutely necessary for the palm leaf reading. But looking back, I definitely had a lot of preparation for this work that I'm doing now. 39 years old today, I had to think for a moment. And basically, when I was 20, I finished school, and a few weeks later, I went on a one-way ticket to India. Once I arrived there, I decided to fully dedicate my life to exploring spirituality and learning more about the mystical traditions from all around the world. And I made this my life's mission and purpose, basically. So I don't have that background that many people have, that at some point they wake up from their normal life. I kind of never really had that normal life. I very early decided to fully dedicate myself to this work. And then for many years, just deeply dived into that, spent like hundreds and hundreds of days in silent meditation, traveled all around the world to many different teachers, and definitely did not have the grounding that is needed to create the kind of organization that I'm running now. That's something I had to learn later on. So I was very ungrounded. I was deep into spirituality, but not much on this earth. So my journey was more the like coming back to earth. And I'm really happy that this very much happened now. Now I feel like really have my feet on the ground, and I'm still open to this kind of subtle dimensions of life at the same time.
Yeah, what you're describing is what Clifton and I call a quantumpreneur. So you went quantum pretty early,
Yes.
discovered the world of spiritual seeking, one-way ticket to India, and then you came back and had to establish the preneur, the entrepreneur part by getting your feet back onto the ground.
Yes, and it was a long and often painful process, the landing. But an important one. I find it so important today to be able to function in all of these dimensions of life.
So what was that process of grounding? What did it look like for you? You know, depending on how much of your life you established in the matrix, how much financial capability one has established or that they already have from their family, maybe that can influence how quickly people need to come back down to this dimension and to this earth. You know, we all have our journeys, and I'd love to hear anything you want to share about yours, Stefan.
Ooh, so much to say. Well, the coming back to earth, it was very painful. It was very confusing, and it was not easy. But I felt very strongly that I should do that I needed to learn how to be a human being, basically, how to function in this world. And I had a few amazing teachers also. Like I had the right frameworks to land. And even though I often was confused and didn't see my path anymore in this landing, actually everything was there. Life was fully helping me and supporting me in this grounding process. But also looking back, I'm very, very grateful for my parents, because they gave me a lot of basic trust in life. Like I always knew that I had somewhere to land if everything would fall apart. And that made me able to take a lot of risks. And I took many risks, and often things didn't work out. And in 2020, when I had my palm leaf reading, I was totally depressed, like being in my old room that I had as a child in my parents' house, kind of figuring out what to do because my life had just collapsed for different reasons. But I'm very, very grateful for my parents to give me this basic stability in life, this basic trust.
Yeah.
I had to come up with the courage But still, I knew I wouldn't starve to death. And that's a big advantage we have in Western worlds, in Western countries in general, I find.
Wow. It's great that you had that support system with your parents and family to take these risks. A lot of times we're scared to take risks because we don't know how it'll turn out. And the majority of people, they prioritize safety and certainty and security. And us, like outliers, whatever you want to call us, quantumpreneurs, we're kind of more like, let's see what happens.
Yes. I also want to clarify, though, it's not like I come from a rich family. It's not like there was a lot of financial security, but there was the security of like, I'm going to have a place to sleep and I'm going to have food to eat. And actually, most people in Western countries, I think, or at least more people than are aware of it, that do have that. But we don't have often the mental freedom to understand that we can have much more courage than we are expressing in our daily life.
You also, at 20, were able to be exposed to the Eastern world, to India, and to what those living conditions are like. And so I know a lot of times people in the Western world haven't had that opportunity to be exposed to what true scarcity looks like.
That's a really important point. That was such an eye-opener. First time I went to India, I was like 20. Now, I was never hungry in my life. And I realized, wow, my life is so good. The majority of people in this world long for just having enough food. And when I understood that, I realized I don't need to focus my whole life on now building a career, making money. Like, I need to focus on the really important things in life, which are like our inner journey, like understanding who we truly are, like understanding that I'm going to die at some point. I need to make the most out of this life now. And that's when I decided to really fully dedicate myself to that path.
Yeah. As you're sharing this, Stefan, what's coming up for me is like when I went to India, I also met people who didn't have much, but they had such freedom and wealth in the mind that you would never be able to tell based on how they're speaking about life or their path or circumstances.
Yes, and I think people who did not leave Western countries, they can't imagine that. They can't imagine what it means to be like a cripple living in the street without legs and smiling at people with a face full of joy. Like,
yes.
Unbelievable.
Bliss. Yeah.
Bliss,
absolutely.
yes.
Wow. So how are you taking all of your life experience and, creating not necessarily a legacy, but creating something to give back to the world to help you find your inner purpose? Where is all this going? What's the Conscious Innovation Lab all about? Which is the umbrella, right, of my palm leaf reading.
Yes, where to start? I need to start a bit early, actually. So after really diving deeply into spiritual practice and usually like silent meditation for a long period of times, at some point I realized now it's time to like share and bring these experiences somehow into the world. And then I started to create different projects like meditation centers in Peru, like a spiritual travel company. I was serving also in different spiritual centers, helping to create other organizations. And I learned a lot by trial and error. So maybe a few words about my first project, a meditation center in Peru. I was so innocent. I just rented a big house and I was like, okay, now this is a meditation center. Free food, free accommodation, free meditation classes. God will provide. Somehow it's going to pay for itself. It was an amazing
model. Just God. God's going to provide.
It was an amazing time. A house full of beautiful, heart-open hippies. And of course, after a few months, I couldn't pay the rent and the whole thing collapsed. And a lot of sadness, a lot of pain, and the big learning I need to understand about business. I understood that there needs to be sustainability. I need to understand how to bridge money and spirituality. It's a very big topic. I think for many people, these are two totally different words. And for me, it's becoming every day kind of my mission, how to bridge those two together. So a few years later, many exciting and painful experiences later, in 2019, I created a company called the Conscious Innovation Lab, which had a purpose to explore how to download future technologies through meditation and other spiritual practices. And I made a couple of different experiments, actually, regarding that. And at some point, also I had an online meditation room that for many days, it was during the COVID time actually, so people had time. For many days, we were meditating together online on Zoom. And it's actually out of that deep meditation that my palm leaf was born. While we were meditating on downloading the highest future potential into the now.
Before going into that, that's a bit of a mouthful. How do you download future technologies? What? Can you help our listeners understand what that means and how you came up with that and how that's a thing?
It's basically what's happening every single day. Whenever we have an idea, we are stepping into the future. Like right now, we are talking online on a video call. At some point, someone had the idea there must be a way to create something like that. Right now, we are the future technology of 1920. In year 1920. And in the same way, in this very moment, 2023, the future technology of 2050 already exists.
Did it say in the palm leaf readings who's gonna create and download which future technology?
Not in detail, but kind of yes.
Oh, I thought you were joking, Victoria.
I was actually, but there's some truth behind it because there's certain, like Nikola Tesla, right? Certain technologies, some people are here to steward them. And in the work that Clifton and I do, and as you know, Stefan, because you've experienced firsthand, that people even have guidance from the other side, like certain spirit guides that help steward a specific mission into this dimension about some of these futuristic technologies like you're talking about, like being online on a online streaming podcast platform that came to somebody out of left field, they call it, or out of the quantum field. It's a frequency that somebody's brain taps into when there's a vibrational match. And then if they're the ones who are here to steward this mission, then more of it starts to flow through the more you connect with it. Is that kind of how what you're talking about as well?
Totally. Exactly. So it's basically something that many of us are familiar with. We're also experiencing it every single day. But I just decided to explore that whole process more consciously and to see, can we consciously create that? That's why Conscious Innovation Lab. And out of that, my palm leaf was born. That's how my palm leaf is literally a child of the Conscious Innovation Lab.
Amazing. And that's like a quantumpreneur room because you're sitting there tapping into the quantum field and entrepreneurial ideas start flowing. So that's fully in alignment with the work that we do. And I want to share a quick story for our listeners and for you, Stefan. I don't know if you know, but Clifton and I were taking turns also stewarding that meditation room. Like I know there was somebody who had to be present at all times to set the space and entrain everybody who joins during, I think at the start of the pandemic or something like that, when the world was going through mayhem. And Clifton and I kept overlapping at the same times. And at the time, we actually were separated. We were reevaluating if we want to be in a relationship or not. And synchronistically, we kept coming in at the same time. I was like, okay, let's text. Let's see what's going on. Let's see what's happening.
Yeah, that's a great memory. Yeah, I was here in LA. You were in Brooklyn.
New York.
And we weren't talking. And I just felt the pulse like, oh, it'd be good. Let's go into this room. Let's get this feeling. For whatever reason, whether it was like an emotional reason or a business motivated reason, it didn't matter. Yeah, it was like, oh, she's here. And then, of course, the heart kind of flutters like, oh my gosh, it's her. It's like a little magical quantification pulling each other together.
Yeah, and I was reevaluating a lot of stuff at the time too. I was in there for all kinds of emotional and spiritual processing, clarity, understanding. And during the pandemic, Clifton moved to California and I stayed back in New York and I was evaluating, do I want to move to California? Am I doing it for the right reasons? I want to make sure it feels fully in alignment with my path and who I am, not just because of a relationship. And this is all stuff I'm evaluating. And then like he comes into the room like, oh my God, I can't escape it.
Here we are now, and now we are in the future from back then.
Yes.
I love your framing. And even like the iPhone, that's future technology of the past. And so if you just reframe it, then I guess your logical mind could say, hey, it's possible. Let's give it a try. What have been some of the results, or what have people experienced in this experiment that you put on? And are you still doing it? Are there future plans for it, or what? Or was it the thing that birthed my palm leaf? That's the thing. That was the most potent thing you could create.
Well, it definitely was what birthed my palm leaf, but Interestingly, we just started it again 10 days ago. So it's happening right now.
Wow.
But at the moment, it's only for 1 hour a day. Then the idea was to really build it up to 24 hours a day.
Wow.
But actually, since 10 days, it's happening again.
Wow.
That's so cool.
Yeah, when we've done the build out of the Quantumpreneur Academy, the experience that we've had with the Conscious Innovation Lab, with that space, there's always a seed of that in how we expand. And so it's just fascinating to explore, because sort of out of sight, out of mind. And then we're working, we're like, oh, this is how we would scale it in this way. And like, oh, that's what we did with you. And so there definitely seems to be a continuous draw and feeling of what you've planted and manifested. And so we're so grateful for that. And even working in the quantum for business, I remember that there was a time I think you held a room at a business or a meditation room, and you had shared a bit about how the business goes through changes. Can you talk a bit about some of the changes and that specific thing? Because we've built on that and would love to add to that.
So I did different experiments with different organizations. And at some point, I had the opportunity at a company of a friend of mine in Austria, like a printer marketing company of 120 people. He had a meditation room in that company. So we did an experiment that for, I think, 10 days, 2 weeks, me and a few other people were meditating in that room every day for a couple of hours, connecting with the field of that company and focusing on downloading kind of the highest future potential of that company, and then observing what happens in the field.
Yes.
And then just noticing the effects of that. And it was a fun experiment.
Wow.
However, I had the impression that because I was so focused on seeing direct results, that it kind of prevented it from happening.
I get that.
That was my experience. After, I think
Yeah.
there needs to be a sense of detachment.
Yeah, just to share with you something, Stefan, and with our listeners too. What I'm hearing you say is like you're tapping into the morphic field of the entity or the business or the company. As you know, Clifton channels, and he started his path channeling deities and different archangels. And so it's evolved to actually channeling business entities. And we have a dialogue like where I ask questions, he gives answers, and we connect with our own business entity of Faces of the Future, which is a culmination of Clifton's and my consciousness and our joint mission together of what we're birthing through Faces of the Future. And we connect with it pretty regularly, like a stand-up meeting, like once a week or something like that. And it propels us with guidance. And the quality of answers we receive and the quality of the guidance has to do with the quality of the questions. And the more I'm attached to it and the more my mind tries to think of rational questions and try to steward the thing, and then I get feedback like, this isn't a board meeting. This is guidance. Go beyond your mind, ask the questions from
It
your
was
heart,
it was
your
this
higher
isn't a
self.
deposition, Victoria, and stop trying to get to an answer. And it's two of us, and so it's how do you solve a tiebreaker, especially in all the hats we wear: living partners, relationship partners,
Yeah.
business partners. Like, all right, let's channel. Let's figure out the higher self morphic field says.
Yeah.
What we've done is we've incorporated that into one of our offerings in the Venture Studio, which we call Quantum Business Alchemy. So we've actually been able to utilize and combine different tools such as family constellation work, mapping, using certain biogeometry, centering pendulums, crystals, you name it, like the traditional fun things. We've been able to apply it to businesses, and we're seeing incredible results. And actually, some of our clients have had negative energies influencing them on the business side that were unbeknownst to us. And then all of a sudden, as I'm in that field, I feel it. Like I understand when there's energies trying to attach or attack that aren't benevolent. And I go, whoa, hold on. And I reach out to the client like, hey, I'm feeling this. What's going on? And it's at that point that they reveal some sort of non-aligned manifestation thing that they're trying to do, or there's a person from their past that had a spiritual connection.
Or they're trying to accelerate a timeline and try to force their hand to make things happen quicker, manipulate with the ego and the mind. And just for our listeners, if we can just back up and talk about what a morphic field is of an entity. And Clifton and I use the example of, let's say, Google or Facebook. A morphic field is just a collection of thought form entities. It's like a bubble. And the more energy and emotional energy you invest into a specific idea or concept, like a company like Google, oh, I hate Google, they're spying on us, or oh, I love Google, they simplified my life, my technology is streamlined, whatever view people have on it, it sends mixed energy about the concept or the entity of Google, and it eventually becomes like a life of its own. Originally the founder creates that entity in the beginning, and then it takes on a life of its own as it starts to develop and build collective momentum and energy. So I just wanted to presence and say that.
Very good dimension.
Yeah, and the connection is to something called the egregore in esoteric mysticism that this is about. It's also a man-made elemental in the Rosicrucian tradition. And just for yourself, it's like, how do you know when you go to, like, I don't know, McDonald's, what to do or how to order? Imagine you were like an alien from another planet and you came to this physical location and you saw all these bright lights. What do you do with it? But because there's been such a combination of thinking, feeling, and willing, your emotions, your thoughts, and the manifestation grounded in this dimension, you understand naturally and intuitively how to operate in that. And there's a subtle energy quality that people can feel, that people can sense into, and that you can actually communicate with. And so that's what this sort of births, is viewing businesses from a different lens in a more conscious way to be able to interact with it. And so I just wanted to share that there's a whole blossoming of information and experiments, I guess you could say, right? Until we were able to repeat it, which we're doing, but we've been experimenting with that core concept that you seeded with us back in 2020.
Yeah.
Yes, and this creation of a business entity that you also spoke about, this is something I think that can be done much more conscious, like much more intentional also. Which is also what happened for me with my palm leaf. So at that point, I didn't know yet that my palm leaf would be the outcome. But we kind of consciously created that core entity, put a lot of prayer, a lot of love, a lot of intention into that. And then later on, it blossomed into my palm leaf organization.
Yeah, it's a seed and you water it daily with your conscious intention. So whatever specific emotions you have towards it, whatever thoughts you have towards it, whatever kind of beliefs. So what we do also is like we help clear any types of blockages in businesses if someone has a lot of momentum that's working against progress for the business. So if you think of a house clearing, if you think of like someone going to a house and clearing out any bad energies, like bringing them back to the light, feng shuiing or doing some energetic practices to move the energy of a house, we do that for businesses now. So following your experiment a little bit, and I'm curious to hear how more of yours go, and we can share and compare notes, because I love that we reconnected right at this time.
Yes, it seems like perfect timing for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what's come through with us the past few months is you have the thinking and the feeling, the love and the thought. And then what came through really strongly these past few months is the willing, the action, the solar plexus, being able to ground it and birth it in this dimension. We've had a few people on who've talked about gut health and actually connecting to the solar plexus and how to clean up the microbiome. And so connecting the more etheric, spiritual to the physical and the biological. What has been your experience in the evolution of the Conscious Innovation Lab within your own physicality?
With my own physicality? That's an interesting question. Well, I probably live a less healthy life at the moment because I spend a lot of time in front of the computer, but somehow it feels healthy in the bigger picture because it grounded me much more in Earth reality, and I'm learning more how to operate here instead of just kind of being on the level of consciousness. Now I'm more able to function in the material world.
Yeah.
But balancing all of that and also focusing on the physical health at the same time is obviously where I really want to end up at some point. Right now, I'm a bit more on the other side of the spectrum of being too much on the computer.
I hear you. Yeah, something Clifton and I also found through this recent discovery is that a lot of spiritual practices, depending on what type of spiritual practices somebody does, it develops their energetic aura or their energy field a certain way. So maybe the third eye gets very developed or the heart chakra gets very developed depending on what type of practices there are. And certain spiritual practices don't develop the will as much, which is like the doing in this dimension, especially those that are more non-dual, like going back to spirit, connecting back to spirit, that don't fully understand the purpose of a human experience. Yeah, there's a great teacher, Dr. Robert Gilbert with the Vesica Institute, who talks about this concept because he compares all the different spiritual teachings and practices and how it impacts the evolution of a human's energy field and existence.
Yeah, I definitely experience it also. Depending on kind of what kind of practice I do, I'm more drawn to either one word or the other.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why when we work with clients in our academy and their company, their entities in the venture studio, we understand what's going on with their business and we can translate that to
Yeah.
how their physical body is. And then vice versa, we could see someone's physical body and their practices and understand where their business is. And actually, one of the most powerful things is to work with the founder because the business is
Yeah.
a natural byproduct of that. So that's why a lot of the more spiritually gifted people who are on sort of that entrepreneur rebalancing, a lot of
Yeah.
the solar plexus, breath work, gut health, making sure that there's not leaky gut and looking at the physicality can actually correlate to a lot of that action. And I myself am one of those people, you know, as someone who was so connected into the spiritual world, the more that like going to the gym, benching iron, breath work, probiotics, looking at my gut health. What we've noticed with some of our clients is that those who are spiritually inclined, a lot of people these days, even who aren't spiritually inclined, have a leaky gut issue because of the food and the way it's been grown, especially in America. And what we've seen is that correlates to poor boundaries, which correlates to improper business arrangements.
Management, yeah.
And as you said, creating the structure to ground a business, you need the clear as possible roles and entity to form. And if you are in Peru opening up a house where anyone can come in at any point in time, that's just, you can't, there's nothing to contain that energy and that manifestation and creation. What are some of the more entrepreneurial lessons you've learned since that Peru house that you've applied?
So many. First of
Yeah.
all, to know what I want and to do everything that is needed to achieve it, even if I don't necessarily like it. It's like in my nature, what I like to do is like literally to meditate somewhere in the Andes or Himalayas. That's what I like to do. But I also realized, no, I want to create projects that like have an impact on this world. And so after I finished school, I only dedicated myself to learn about spirituality. I didn't went to college. I didn't have a proper job. Nothing. No, so I didn't learn all the tools. And
You have a PhD in consciousness, though.
kind of.
That's what
But
we say.
when I decided to create these projects, I also realized I need to learn a lot of stuff. And now everything that I'm using every single day, I just learned it by doing. And that includes things that I don't find so sexy. Accounting. Like
Martin thinks accounting sexy.
all of these things, or marketing. I had a lot of resistance to marketing and money, all of these things. Now I love marketing. Understood. It's really important to get your message out, to reach people. It's really important to run a profitable, sustainable business in order to create more projects. I got it now. And now I love it. Yeah. So like really having the will to learn what we need to learn, I think that was a major lesson. And to fail again and again and again until it's successful.
Yeah. So how did you come to love those things like marketing?
Accounting.
I don't know if you love accounting yet. Maybe love is a strong word, but how do you
Hey,
optimize that energy?
Today I love it because I see the why behind it. I see I'm doing that not now because I love Excel, but I learned to love Excel because I love what I want to create. I love what I want to share with the world. And that to bring that love into everything I do on a daily level, that makes everything enjoyable.
Yeah.
wow. How did you bring the love to accounting, to Excel? Can you help our listeners understand that?
It's about seeing where it leads towards. If I want to create a global organization that bridges deep, deep mysticism with this material world, I need to learn how to balance the numbers. When I do accounting, I don't see it as accounting. I see it as a tool to build my dream. In that moment, it becomes fun.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what was that experience or that moment where you realized that accounting is a tool to build your dream? Because not many people have made that connection.
Yes.
Or zoomed out far enough to see how
Mhm.
you saw it and recontextualized it.
Probably also through many painful experiences of things not working out.
That can be a good teacher.
Makes sense.
At some point, I had to learn this lesson.
Yeah, that really resonates for us too. We had to learn about marketing and sales, and Clifton thankfully came in with an accounting background, but because of his journey of spiritual awakening, was maybe resisting it for a little bit of time of being the numbers guy and then coming back into it.
My
It's
challenge was more being pigeonholed as just the numbers guy, because no one,
yes.
a lot of people, at least in my reality, don't really like doing the numbers. So then they know that I know how to do the numbers, and that's what they want my role to be. And I was being called to
Mhm.
a higher expression or greater expression, of which
Yeah.
numbers are a key part, but that's not all of it. And there was aspects of myself that were yearning to be developed further, rather than
Mhm.
being contained and just focused on numbers. And so that was a lot of my unique journey. But I do love numbers. I love Excel, because just exactly as you said, you can see how things add up, how things build, and just the background and training. I start seeing things in spreadsheets and understanding like the flow of energy based on accounting.
Yes, it's the
Yeah.
foundation. No? If there are no proper numbers, it's not going to work.
And the numbers tell a story about how the business is doing, what the future looks like, what the future roadmap will be if things keep going at this pace or if we need to make changes, right? And a lot of times people might avoid the numbers because they don't want to deal with that honest truth.
Also, another lesson I want to share is like the power of focusing and to say no.
Mhm.
Before we started recording, we spoke about the love of doing many projects at the same time. I
Yeah.
still have that love, but actually, I think the main reason why my partnership is growing as a successful organization is because I fully focus on that and I say no to
Mhm.
90% of my thoughts and ideas.
That's beautiful.
And there's also a difference because many people, including myself, we like to do many things at the same time, and then none
Mhm.
of them has enough energy to land. But if we
Yeah.
focus on one and that's working, it's much easier to build a
Mhm.
second one on top, and then a
Yes.
third one on top, and then all of a sudden it
Yes.
starts to work.
Yeah, that really resonates with me too, Stefan. And in human design, we just looked at Stefan's chart before hopping on this call. He's a manifesting generator. So that's a multi passionate entrepreneur. They like to have multiple plates spinning. Syncing it back up to how businesses have a thought form energy in a morphic field. Clifton in my business is a manifesting generator, and it wants to do that thing that you're describing of let's do this project and this project and this project. We got the venture studio and the Quantumpreneur Academy and the wellness studio and the research studio. And it's like we had to just focus on the Quantumpreneur Academy for a while, which is just the coaching, which is preparing people for this kind of lifestyle, training the bodhisattvas to have business skill, the expression that came through yesterday. And now we're starting to build up the venture studio again. It was always there. And I see that you're doing that as well because you had the Conscious Innovation Lab, you had the research you were doing about channeling futuristic technologies, and then you got the impulse to execute on my palm leaf reading. You let it sit for a little bit, the rest of it, develop my palm leaf reading. And now I'm hearing that you're coming back into that exploration of the business entities and the channeling futuristic technologies. And I would say our paths are alike in that as well. Would you agree, Clifton?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd love to hear what was the inspirational moment. Like for us, we're very much guided by channeling the entity, understanding the entity,
Mm.
and following that. What was your pulse to open the Zoom room once a week?
Once a day, actually.
Oh,
It's
once a
1 hour
day.
every
Oh,
day.
okay.
Well, the
Nice.
impulse was actually a different kind. It was
Uh-huh.
that I always felt a lot of sadness about the Israel and Palestine situation. And I was like, okay, this doesn't help if I'm just in my negative mind. What can I do? And I was like, okay, let's open up a meditation room. And for every day for 1 hour, let's just pray to all the timeless masters, to all these benevolent forces who are there every moment, and pray to them, meditate with them to bring light and blessings for this world. So it's a slightly different approach. It's still the same outcome in the end.
Yeah.
But it's more about focusing about this essence of goodness, to hold space for a benevolent future for this planet. So the focus is more our entire world, our entire humanity this time than a single entity, a single business.
Beautiful. Yeah, we talk a lot about your total life of joy on an individual level, your total business of joy on the business level. And what we've done is created a framework to understand what amount of energy at what level of the same fractal you can do. Because what we've noticed with entrepreneurs or quantumpreneurs or quantum-based people is they're thinking global, they're thinking cosmic, and
Very macro.
and anytime you think of that, you're thinking beyond your physicality, and that's going to create an ungroundedness. We also see people who are so embedded in the future that they're not present in the physical, right?
And it's creating like vertigo in their physical body because they're trying to orient between two realities, like a dizziness being in between dimensions.
And of course, the other side is like the sadness from the past or the pain from the past that's not in the present moment. So this three-dimensional world is very potent in terms of being able to create something, because if you're too far in the past or too far in the future, or if you're too beyond your physicality, then this ungroundedness, this inability to manifest really happens. And at the same time, you have the conscious awakening. We have a framework of like what kind of conscious awakenings you've been through. A lot of people have the all self conscious awakening, which is the recognition that everyone is connected. And so, at least from my experience, when that happened, I just wanted to play in the all self world, which is thinking globally. But what that was doing was that was removing my ability to take care of my I self, my individual self. And so at the same time, having a measured, and I love that it's 1 hour, a measured amount of time for you to connect to that energy, for you to connect to that part of yourself and have a proactive, joyful, optimistic action that can be taken. Because so many times people get caught in the negative of reacting to the situation. You're potentiating a future with more of that positive energy, and you're not over committing yourself to that all self, but you're saying, hey, this is important to me. I'm going to go in, I'm going to get the job done, and I'm going to get back to my palm leaf.
Yes. But in a way, I'm also in my palm leaf when I'm sitting there for 1 hour. Because for me, my palm leaf is also a tool to contribute to co-creating this benevolent future. So like, and literally my meditation space is 2 meters from my desk, like in my office. Like I go to meditate, I go to my desk.
Same.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's so true. Like with Dr. Joe Dispenza, he has like a healing group that we've been part of. And he says, when you heal another, you heal yourself, right? Our guru said, we cause someone else's reality, you cause yours, right? So there is this interconnectedness. And what's great is that you have already put in the work to put in the boundaries of what my palm leaf is, right? Versus not having a business. So there's no vessel for you to invest in or to contain all of that positive energy. And now there is. And so one of the things with presence is people's journey, where they are on their journey. Do you know what you want to create? Have you created the vessel to contain that entity?
Financial abundance too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Important part to have the vessel that you mentioned. And the mechanics to behind it.
So you can fill it up, right? So when you go into a field like that is loving and benevolent, you've got something that is being filled up rather than just pouring through you in and out in that. And it just creates more of a euphoric experience. There's an actual constructive or manifested pathway that you're participating in. That is a byproduct of your clarity of who you are, what you're here to do, and what the business use case is for that. And so I'd love to explore in this final section.
I want to hear from you, Stefan, what human potential means to you.
Our human potential.
Yeah.
It means to really connect with this dream in our heart and dedicate our entire life to making it a reality.
Wow.
Because ultimately, we all know, we all feel what's our potential. Not all of us make the decision to really go for it.
Yeah.
So to make this decision to, yes, I want to live that. And to be free also, to be free from these societal norms and pressures and decide by ourselves what's the kind of life we want to create.
Yeah. That feels really aligned with how I would define it as well.
And really aligned to how I observe you embodying it, Stefan.
Yeah.
Going out and doing what you're doing.
Since age 20 from what you shared, yeah.
Yeah, we always say it's a unique blueprint for each person, right? It's not like, oh, go to school, then go do this, then go do this. For you, that means at 20, go to India, where for others, it might be go somewhere else.
50 or whatever,
Yes.
different path.
So what's on the horizon
cool.
for you and my palm leaf in your total life of joy? What's next?
There's a big vision for it, but my lesson that I learn every single day was to take things slowly and to really focus on making things work, which is happening right now. And to build on top of that step by step. But also what's next is I'm very clear that I want to continue this journey together with my team. Because it gives me so much joy to work with the people that I work with, because we're not just a company, we're really like friends being on a mission together. And that's really essential for me, to keep that sense of we're doing this together and to enjoy our connection in this creation also. So I want to keep this sense of family and friends being on a mission in our creation. But there are many, many dreams. There's a big vision behind it. But I want to take it slow, step by step, and to focus on making it real. Like to have great visions, but then really step by step bringing it into reality.
Beautiful.
On a practical level, also to answer that, it means to continue focusing on offering the palm leaf readings worldwide. We do this in many languages, and also to explore more the spiritual dimension of it, because the palm leaves are just like the surface of a whole mystical world of the ascended masters that are communicating with us humans today. The palm leaves is just one of many tools for us. We basically want to continue creating these kind of tools of awakening, both in the subtle dimension, like the palm leaves are online and very subtle, but also in the physical dimension, to create places that help us human beings to remember who we truly are, actually.
Yeah. Wow.
So, current path and direction.
So how can people get in touch with you, Stefan, to receive their palm leaf reading?
So, first of all, it's good to know that the palm leaves will call you in exactly the right moment. At some point, you will know, hey, I should look for my palm leaf. And then it's usually the right time to do it. And when it's the right time, just come to our website, mypalmleaf.com, or check out our YouTube channel. Get inspired. And whenever it's the right moment, we are really, really happy to help you on this journey.
And the YouTube channel is also called My Palm Leaf.
We actually have many YouTube channels in many different languages, but My Palm Leaf is
Wow.
the English channel.
Beautiful. And we'll drop the link in the show notes below, both links. And we'll offer to our listeners a special promo for getting their palm leaf reading with you that will also drop in the show notes below.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, it's been so incredible to sit with you and share this conversation, as well as all the ascended masters and rishis that are supporting and stewarding this mission. I can certainly feel it all, and so grateful to have you, Victoria, as the co-host, and you, our listeners. We're so grateful for you tuning in, and looking forward to your next activation of conscious awakening.
Yes. Thank you. We'll talk to you guys next time. Thanks for joining.